Matt, I appreciate you coming, Charleston.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man, super cool. So you and I had a great meeting yesterday. Great dinner. A lot of topics discussed that we can dive into today, which I'm really excited about. So, let's just talk about you for a second. Who is Matt?
Who is Matt?
Who is Matt?
That's an interesting. Yeah, we did talk about this a little bit yesterday. It's something I'm kind of finding out now, because I started when I was 19 years old, and working in cover, you're a lot of people. Even when you're in true name and you have a different persona, and you're never really yourself. So it's kind of a quest I'm on now to figure out
who you are.
Yeah.
So can you explain to listeners what a true name is? Sure.
So true name would just be the name you were actually born with, working in that. It doesn't mean that you're, purporting to be exactly yourself. You can have a different persona, but you're using that name and not a cover identity.
Right. Yeah, I think that could be obviously kind of mess with your psyche a little bit at the age of 19, because you're still in your developmental stage. Yeah. Now, obviously, 19, you didn't just fill out an application, submit it, and then you were waiting. So obviously, where were you raised? Where were you born? How does it even happen at the age of 19?
Yeah, so I was born in Southern Illinois, right across the river from St. Louis, Missouri, like right when you get across the bridge. It was a pretty rough place. We were close to East St. Louis, which I think had the highest murder rate of any city in the United States. And then I was in college, finished up early, and then joined the Navy, intending to do the military thing. And then right out of training, the NSA pulled me over on like a military billet to the NSA. And so I spent my 4 years working for the NSA unintentionally.
Right. And then you finished college early with what focus?
Cryptology.
And you went and got your master's? Now, was that after?
It was after.
That was after you went and got your master's. Okay. Yeah. And why the Navy?
Well, so my original intent was to go into the SEAL program eventually. So I had already been talking to the Marine Corps before that. I was in their pipeline to do the officer program with them. I had a scholarship lined up with them, actually. And then because of some family stuff, I had to walk away from that.
Sure.
And then came back. I thought I was going to do my master's degree. And I thought, well, I'll go serve for a little while because I didn't want to miss the war. I didn't know it was going to last for 350 years, and I had plenty of time. But I didn't want to be somebody who missed going and doing that. So
sure. I think that's very interesting because you went in after the age of 19. You went into the Navy, correct? 4 years, picked up by NSA, and then from there you transitioned to the CIA.
Correct.
So I always like to give a quick guest bio. I guess we'll just call it that I pulled straight off of your website. So I'm going to basically just talk about your resume. 17 years service across the NSA, CIA. Unlike any standard CIA officer working under embassy protection, you were a NOC, which stands for non-official cover operative, which basically means no diplomatic immunity.
That's right.
And or no U.S. government acknowledgement. If you were burned, may God be with you. Basically.
Well, they have the opportunity. So if you do get rolled up, the president can claim you. There's a time period. There's a window for that. But it's an option. Yeah.
Not your option.
Nope.
Didn't think so.
Nope.
So again, from my understanding, the CIA had known who you were for a while before you were in the Navy. Is that correct?
That's correct. I actually had a relative who had worked for the agency before that, and they had started looking at me early on.
How does that? Is it psychological stuff, schooling? Is it just kind of more of a he might be a good asset in the future type deal?
I think it's case dependent.
Sure.
Sometimes if somebody's a first generation American, they've got a great language capability. Or, you're studying something that's going to be really specifically applicable to a program that they're interested in. That can be one way. A psychological makeup can be another.
Right.
It it's really case dependent.
Yeah, that makes sense. We all have seen the movies, so we could just rely on that for our imagination. So basically, you've already stated this, finished college early, joined the Navy, spent 4 years as a cryptologist, selected for the military billet with the NSA, CIA recruited you out of that assignment. You spent 13 years as a NOC, officer operations, posting as private money launderer inside some of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the world. His work includes 3 years of embedding inside 1% outlaw motorcycle gang, direct infiltration of Mexican drug cartel trafficking networks. Over the course of your career, you moved over $100 million in laundered funds across multiple criminal organizations while gathering intelligence from the inside. Is that how you sum up 20 years?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. All right, guys.
Yeah, I think we're done.
Podcast over. Next topic. Matt, that's incredible. And I know you and I had some pretty lengthy discussions yesterday kind of about that. I've always kind of been curious about why you wanted to go into that world of, it just seems like just intelligence. Was it because you wanted something interesting to do in your life, or is it something you wanted to stop evil? You know what I mean? I mean, you seem like a very good dude, and I feel as if that potentially could be an option.
Yeah, so I'd wanted to join the agency since I was a kid. I think, before I graduated from high school, I'd read every single book out there about the intelligence community, specifically human intelligence.
Sure.
And that was a lifelong dream for me. I didn't know it was going to work out quite the way that it did, but yeah, when I was approached, I was pretty stoked about it.
Yeah, I can imagine. And obviously, when you were approached, there's probably a process there where you obviously don't have a party about it. There's no billboard with your face on it saying what you're doing.
No.
How did that feel?
I mean, they do a good job of making you feel pretty special,
Yeah.
It's kind of like, winning prom queen or something like that.
Sure.
They do a good job of setting it up, right? They're recruiting you the same way that we end up recruiting other people. So they're good at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously this was a very specialized program that you were in.
Correct. Yeah.
That no longer exists.
Well, at least the office and the sub-program that I was a part of has been stood down.
Right.
I'm sure they have other things, but
sure,
they wouldn't call me up and let me, hey, just so that you know, this is what we're doing now.
Here's the memo on the next program. Yeah. Did you know you wanted to go into money laundering specifically? No. Was it like the spy stuff, narcotics?
Yeah. So I had zero idea the money laundering thing would ever be a part of it. I had no idea what I would be focusing on specifically at all.
Yeah.
So they tell you very, very little. And the money laundering thing wasn't initially the goal. The goal was to buy certain technology overseas that the U.S. was interested in, whether that was to test it or to get a hold of it for, numerous reasons.
Sure.
But in order to do so, you can't just whip out the Amex card that says, United States Treasury on it, right? So money laundering in a legal way became essential to being able to purchase a lot of this stuff. So it's kind of connected to it. And then just based on circumstance, became more of a focus for me later.
Did you feel as if your knowledge, which again, you had very little to no life experience at the age of 19. I mean, you're still a kid, in my opinion. At least that's how I felt at 19. I was not approached by any type of national security organization at the age of 19. So I can't really relate, but I can say that it probably felt exciting and adventurous to start just before you knew anything. I would just assume that's how it felt. Just felt like, hey, is it like the movies? Is it not like the movies? Is it like the books that I read?
Yeah.
Now, did those books live up to the expectation?
Some of them.
Some of them, okay.
Some of them that were more realistic. Like, we talked about Tony Mendez yesterday and Jana, their book. The real people that write stuff, you get a good sense for it. That's why they want you to read these things. So one of the interview questions that they ask you is, how many books have you read about this? Because if you're not interested in the topic,
you're not going to make it.
And if your job is to collect information that's out there,
right,
but you won't go to the library to collect information about what you want your future to be forever, that doesn't really make too much sense.
Right. Did you feel like this path chose you? Do you feel like this is what you were destined to do at the age of 19?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, once you go through the psychological process and you learn a lot more about yourself, you know, one of the biggest things for us is suitability. You know, they want to pair people with assignments that they're naturally suitable to do. You don't want to try to fit a square peg in a round hole. And so my childhood and some of the things I thought were a personal negative about me as a child ended up being some of the psychological reasons that made me particularly suitable for the type of work that I did.
What would be one of those?
So I was extremely, I would say, overly shy as a child, and I couldn't look somebody in the eye.
Sure.
You know, I would always like hide behind my mom's leg when people came around, to an age that was unnatural for most children. I had to take speech classes. I was just not, you know, developing in that way. But what it did is it forced me to be extremely observant of other people. And so I would watch other kids that were having a lot of social success, and I would say, oh, that's what works. I'll mimic that behavior, because it just wasn't coming naturally to me. And so having that framework of observation and then mimicking what works ends up being extremely valuable when you're trying to join a group of people that are, you know, hostile to outsiders.
Your adaptability.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's basically what you had to do.
Right.
You had to pretend, you had to adapt to the environment, whatever that was you were tasked to do.
Yeah. And a lot of it is that, mimicking the behavior patterns of the tribe that you're trying to get in, you know, be a part of.
Yeah. Quick side note. Do you have any hobbies? Yeah, we're going to get into the deep. Yeah, we're definitely going to dive into this. But I'm just like, did you have anything growing up? Like, obviously, like favorite superhero, Batman, like sports. Like, was that something that you took part in? You just read spy novels?
Sports, but I was an avid reader of everything.
Okay.
Classical literature. I was a voracious reader as a child. But sports also. Yeah, I played baseball, soccer.
Yeah. I think I can tell you're very intelligent just from talking to you, and just your ability to probably process information is probably faster than the average person. That's probably a trait they obviously look for, is your ability to retain information. Like the fact that you could retain names really quickly, like during our conversation, you could tell that you are able to hyper focus and collect a lot of information. I just picked that up from you from dinner last night.
Well, it's also a learned skill too, right?
Sure,
so you're looking for somebody who's naturally suitable in that way.
Sure.
But then it's almost like the Sherlock Holmes thing.
Right.
The brain pays attention to what you teach it to pay attention to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so it's a skill that can be learned as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, and now that you're 38, right? When you look at your path though, finishing college early, which obviously is a task in itself. I mean, you were 19 when you finished college? Mm-hmm. When did you finish high school?
Around 16.
Okay, that checks out.
Yeah, but I was taking classes at the local community college while I was in 10th grade. Yeah.
So, picked up at 19. At 20, were you in it at 20?
At 20, I was headed to Afghanistan-Pakistan, yeah.
Got it. Okay.
I had my 21st birthday during that deployment.
And you and I kind of touched on this yesterday. Do you feel like from 19 to 38, do you feel like you missed out on anything? Like a normal life?
You don't know at the time. Now looking back, I do. But you know, that was normal to me. And now when I see other people, I'm like, oh, that's what. Because you don't observe it when you're in it. And the people I was around, you know, especially at the upper echelons of the criminal world, they don't have normal lives either, right? Yeah. So there's not a lot to compare it to. But now I'm like, oh my goodness, I lived a different life than a lot of people.
And it's a 24/7 life.
Oh yeah.
There is no decompression from work.
No, I mean, it's very similar to a method actor, where you're not coming home after you're meeting up with somebody and then just turning it off. It's not a light switch. So you stay in character the entire time.
And they prepare you for that?
I would say half and half. They find people who are suitable to be like that, and then they do prepare you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about compartmentalizing things in your life. There's a lot of psychological coaching.
Yeah. Psychological evaluation, I'm assuming. You and I talked about the consistency of that throughout your career as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One, to probably obviously make sure that you're not compromised, but also to make sure that you are good to go. I'm
and a lot of it isn't necessarily from a personal health standpoint. It's more of a, are you still in a headspace where you can be effective at your job?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think, I'll ask this later. I think, when you're in it, and we kind of talk about this too, like friends from high school, friends from college, nothing.
Like I told you yesterday.
Yeah.
After my first podcast I had a friend from high school, just one, reach out over LinkedIn, and that's the only person I know from back then.
Is that weird?
I mean, it's weird now that people tell me it's weird. I didn't know. For me, it was just different parts of my life, and I moved on. But
what did he say? Was he like, "Hey, bro, I remember you from"?
Yeah, we played soccer together.
Played soccer. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just trying to think. Like I told you about that guy I knew in college, and then he was like, "Yeah, had a conversation with somebody, and then I never saw him again. Never heard from him again."
Yeah.
It's interesting that they have the ability to kind of create you. It's almost like not that you're like a construct or anything like that. but just like they knew exactly what they were doing. It was like it was like the precision that they approached you with. They knew from who you were at the age of whatever it was, 16 or 19, whatever the case may be, or even maybe even earlier than that, that they knew exactly what you were going to be used for.
I mean, a lot of people have criticisms about the agency, but I'll tell you one thing. As far as spotting, assessing, and getting people who are suitable to do very unique jobs,
they're the best in the world.
Yeah.
That's crazy. How I'm gonna skip that question. I don't even like this question. Are you a conspiracy theorist? No.
The reason I'm not a conspiracy theorist is it would take more than 3 people to keep that secret, and that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Once you've seen, at times, let's just call it what it is, the incompetence of the U.S. government, the idea that a couple hundred people could keep some secret like that is just laughable,
And probably impossible.
Yeah. At least from, my perspective.
Yeah. Well, your perspective, we'll take it here. As it pertains to trust, do you have a hard time trusting people?
Oh, absolutely.
And you think they have a hard time trusting you?
No.
You think
not in person, at least.
Right. You have a hard time trusting people because of I mean, I can assume why, but why do you think?
So, having spent so much time focusing on, what are other people's motivations, right? That's what you're always trying to assess in somebody else. What is the selfish motivation that they have for doing whatever action that they're up to? And you're always trying to tie things back to that. 1, because it's a way to see if they're attempting to manipulate you.
Sure.
2, once you notice what it is, it's a way to manipulate them. The other thing is once you're so in tune with if people are being deceitful to you, you notice a lot of, it's like white lie kind of stuff.
Small.
Maybe it's not significant, but you are noticing, this person is pulling a lie of omission right now, or this person's trying to lead me in a way that's going to give me a false assumption about, the reality here. So when you notice it so much, it's hard to fight that off and say, no, that's just normal. They could still have good intentions.
Sure. I can imagine it was tough because you've been in that life for so long, feeling that, because again, when like for someone like me, when you say, this is what I did for a living, I was CIA, I was undercover, whatever the case may be. Some people would say, well, are you really Matt? Is your name actually Matt? Are you on this podcast right now doing what you're supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
I think sometimes there is a rabbit hole, obviously. And sometimes I don't think everything's a conspiracy theory. I think that there is face value reality and it is what it is. Right.
Yeah. I think more often than not, the basic, simple answer to something is what's actually going on.
Yeah. I think that the trust thing, has that affected personal relationships as soon as you got out?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in both directions.
Sure.
So, when you are upfront with somebody that's the kind of work that you did, sometimes there's like a little fanish thing to it in a positive way. But then there's also a lot of times the reality of, man, this guy lied for a living. Would I notice if he was doing it to me? How can I tell? I can't use the same barometer with this person. And so that can cause a little bit of distrust just by being honest about the background there.
Yeah. Are you extremely hypervigilant? Because I could tell whenever you and I went out to dinner, I could just tell you were very aware of kind of what's around. I was aware that you were aware of kind of what's around you. The fact that you built your career on basically trying to be as authentic as possible has affected your ability in daily life to do daily things like sleep.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
Do you feel as if that was worth it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just walking to the store.
Sure.
Getting in your car.
Yeah.
Opening up your cell phone.
Well, there were 2 times at dinner last night where it kind of came up. There was one time where I noticed that you also noticed the person that was sitting to your right, my left, and the topic that they were talking about.
Yeah.
Once by the words that he said kind of loudly, and then by almost an aggressive tone that the person had. And then we basically closed the restaurant down, and then we're walking to the car, and somebody's following us out into the
behind us. Yeah.
In the dark parking lot.
You and I definitely both saw that.
Yeah, we had a lot of nonverbal conversations.
And then as soon as I saw that he, clicked the car on, I was like, okay, he's obviously going to his vehicle. So, okay, that was no, I saw it.
Yeah. He almost looked like he had a machete in his hand with the light under the trees there.
It was 85 degrees and he had a big puffy jacket on.
Yeah.
No flag. Right. So that was odd, right?
I was actually feeling bad because I was like, man, I just met this guy. He's super cool. And I'm going to get clipped. He's going to be next to me. And he's going to get it
Matt.
too.
Yeah, I get damaged by proxy over here. I just wanted some steak and hang out with you. If you care about being capable physically, mentally, then this is for you. A lot of people don't actually need more motivation, they need structure. That's why we built Effective Fitness Training. It's a structured strength conditioning program, not random workouts, not trend-based programming, not chasing aesthetics. It's progressive training built around strength, durability, conditioning, and longevity. Every phase has intent. Every lift has a purpose. We focus on building real-world capacity, the kind that carries over into your job, your life, into the stuff that actually matters. You get clear programming with built-in progression and conditioning that supports strength instead of interfering with it. Mobility so that you stay durable, recovery guidance, and coaching so you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. It's simple, it's structured, and it works if you work. If you want one program that covers everything, strength, speed, endurance, bodybuilding, mobility, recovery, nutrition guidance, and coaching, go to effective.fitness/stay ready. We'll take care of the programming, you show up and train. Yeah, it's again, I could definitely tell just from like your mannerisms, like how you kind of just how you move. And I always thought that was interesting. And I think that plays right into where I kind of want to go now, which is you going undercover. Mm-hmm. You don't just walk in to a bar and say, yo, I'm a part of your gang now.
Right.
How does that, and I understand if you can't go into specifics, but that process of getting started, is that on the job training, or is that they prepare you, there's profiles made and you're moving forward? What does that look like?
So it's both. There is, I would say 5% of it is training for it. Then you are also getting support, right? So like our targeting officers are building up profiles on people that you're typically going to, bump or approach. And a lot of times we'll have psychologists look over it, and if you've got a target that you've been studying for a few months, you're reading all their emails, listening to their phone calls, everything, you can get a pretty good psychological idea of who they are and what would trigger them in a positive and a negative way during the interaction. And so I always equate it to like going to a magic show but you don't know you're there, right? So people pay tickets to go to a magic show. Sure. They still get fooled. They know it's being done to them, and it still works. So if you don't know it's being done to you, it's amazingly effective. And if you have the right approach and that much psychological profiling on somebody, it is extremely difficult for them to notice that it's happening to them.
Sure. And now, like, did they send you to acting classes? Did they send you, or is it just a personal, this is Matt, he's really good at this because of your psych profile?
So they didn't send me. When I was at training at the offsite, they brought somebody through, and we did a short version of like method acting and stuff, definitely.
Yeah. So you did not go the normal route that most officers go through.
Correct.
Can you talk can you talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I trained in a completely different state with somebody who was a career officer who had been contracted to do this training at it was a mansion. It was massive estate, had a lake and a guest cottage that I stayed in. It was super cool, to be honest.
Yeah.
And he was the main instructor the entire time. And then they also sent specialists in, frequently to relay their expertise in something, whether it's like a lock-picking expert for a surreptitious entry kind of thing, or psychologists that would stop by often to go over different topics.
And it was just you?
Just me.
The whole mansion?
Yep.
Could you leave? Like, could you go to the restaurant? Could you go get food? You could go get
absolutely.
food. Yeah.
And we were, I was encouraged to, because one of the first things you start doing is developing the persona, right? And so I was constantly encouraged, go out and exercise it on people, go test it. See, are people responding favorably, to this personality that you're developing here?
Yeah, because, again, you can train all you want. You can be in a mansion and train all you want, but the implementation of that training is what's going to prepare you for the effectiveness of how good you are at adapting to those environments.
That's it. And a lot of times, this is all about perception. And your job when you're working undercover is to control how people are perceiving you. And when you first start out, people have a very inaccurate view of human behavior. So it's the same with doing counter surveillance training. Once you start hyper-focusing on how people are acting around you, the first thing you notice is everybody's acting weird, because you've never taken a clear picture of what normal human behavior actually is. Not a movie version,
right?
But people are freaking weird in real life.
Yeah.
But it seems at first like everybody is just focused on you and everything you're doing, and they're judging you because you're noticing that abnormal behavior. And so it takes some time to test, is what I'm trying to project persona-wise, are they buying it? Are they coming to the same perception that I'm trying to steer them to or not?
Like, you have to believe you're that person, correct?
Yeah, you are.
You are that person.
Yeah.
You have to believe that.
Yeah, it's not acting. It's real.
It's who you are. And it's probably hard to swap out of that after being in that for 17, almost 20 years. Yeah. How did you gain the trust? How did you start to infiltrate, I guess is the right word, and get closer to maybe some of the shot callers, the decision makers? Mm-hmm. How did you work that process? Did you have to go prove yourself, do tests, whatever the case was? What was that?
So this might be a little bit of a boring answer,
sure,
but the things that were most effective to me were not the sexy stuff. It wasn't like getting in a bar fight with them or showing how tough I was. It was just relating to them on normal people shit, and sometimes emotional stuff. One of the ways I accidentally got close was just, I walked a guy's wife after she got off as a bartender to her car to make sure she was safe. I didn't even know who he was. And I found out later when he thanked me that he was an extremely important person in that world. But it was an accident. But it was on purpose that I was treating people the right way.
Sure. Yeah. The perception it seems, in concept and conversation, doesn't seem that difficult. Meaning, like, you just have to be who you think you should be, And it's not necessarily what the movies or the books portray.
Not at all. Not at all. You want to have common ground with people,
Sure,
but positive common ground, not negative.
Right, of course.
Not like we're going to bond because we lead pipe some dude together. We're going to bond because we share values, right? Or things that are really important to you emotionally, spiritually, are important to me. Is a much better way to create that dynamic and rapport with somebody than the negative stuff.
Yeah. And how did that day-to-day look like? Like you show up on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
You're Matt. Mm-hmm. You got your leather jacket on. You got your tattoos
With the club.
Yeah. What does that look like? Is it fun? Is it exciting? Is it boring?
It's all of the above.
All the above.
It's a lot more boring than you would see like in a Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
Just because they have to make things happen much more frequently to make it an interesting show. But a lot of times it's just sitting around, hanging out, drinking in the bar, just talking about sports, broing out. And then you have that 5% of the time where it's extremely exciting. And you never know when that moment is going to be. So you're a little on edge the whole time.
Yeah. And you get to say yes to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bet that was probably difficult sometimes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because you are, like I said, you are relating on some of the values that you share.
Sure.
But you don't get to bring all of your personal values into it either.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're a man of faith.
Yeah.
So I know obviously that can be difficult. But obviously, I like to think God put you there for a reason, right?
I think one of the hardest things for me from a faith perspective was, encouraging other people to sin, essentially. When you're a part of that world, if you're giving somebody something or, helping them achieve something that would be a sin religiously, it's always in the back of your head, like, I don't know, is that the way I'm supposed to be doing it? Is that person doing narcotics now because I was involved in it or because I didn't stop them?
You probably have to learn to compartmentalize that, I'm assuming. You have to put on the work hat, but that work hat doesn't come off.
That's right.
And I could see how that could mess with your neuro circuits.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you have to make it, comparative. In the business that I was in, it's really the ends justify the means kind of job.
Sure.
And so the way I would frame it, I wasn't a law enforcement officer either. My job was not to send people to prison. It was to collect information or to assimilate with the group. But, I would always compare it in my head to, is it my job to stop them from jaywalking? No. But now you're just working up the ladder. Like, where's the line of, I'm going to drop all this, pull the parachute, and in this rodeo,
sure,
and you a lot of times are responsible for making that decision yourself.
Have you ever made the wrong decision?
Hundreds and hundreds of times.
Yeah, but nothing wrong enough to compromise what your intended mission was or your objective was. Yeah, because that can have consequences, I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
Of the worst capacity.
Yeah.
When you got in there, were you surprised, or did you already know the level of organization and capabilities of some of these gangs?
I was completely surprised, whether it was in a negative or a positive way. The perception I had before I met them was just wrong, one way or the other. There was a lot more normalcy in that life than I thought there would be.
Okay.
And the other side of it was a lot darker than I thought it was going to be at the same time. So it was a little weird in that way. Because you see somebody who's capable of these atrocious things at sometimes.
Sure.
But then they turned out to be like the best dad you've ever seen in your life, with their kid. And you learn pretty quickly that people are shades of gray. They're not all good and they're not all bad.
Yeah. And that can obviously mess with you as well.
Well, you go in, especially, say 19, I expected the bad guys to have these red devil eyes and to be just clearly bad. And when you find out that that's almost never the case, like there are exceptions. There are people that are actually fucking horrible people.
Oh yeah.
But more often than not, they're just people too.
And they're just after the profit. They're after the money.
Yeah, some people are just putting food on the table for their kids. They're not trying to be El Chapo. So you
Got
have
it.
to see that side of it. I've seen people struggle. I knew a guy that tried to get into law enforcement, was denied. He was in a 1%er club after that, but he was like, I tried to do it the right way, man. And he was being genuine. He had.
Yeah. Do they teach you how to pick up on body language of these people?
Oh, yeah.
How they're lying by their eye tracking and like their hand movements, their blinking.
Yeah, there is some of that.
Yeah.
Like when you're trying to see, if somebody's being deceitful.
Sure.
Also, when you're calculating if somebody's moving towards an aggressive state.
Of course, yeah.
But because of, my childhood, I was already very energy-wise attuned to if somebody was about to be violent around
Sure.
me, to the extent that I could feel it without even looking.
Sure. Some of these guys, you say they weren't all bad in certain areas of their life. Did you ever find yourself liking them?
Constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Was that difficult for you?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't there, like I said, to throw anybody in prison, you're
Sure.
still lying to people. And and when you see this very genuine side of them and often caring, I'm not a huge dude. And when stuff would happen, let's say like a fight broke out, and you notice that somebody's putting themselves in harm's way to block you from getting hurt because they love you, they care
Sure.
about you, you do have a certain amount of guilt inside that says, man, that person truly loves me.
He looked out for me.
Yeah.
It's that human community aspect
Yeah.
that we all feel sometimes.
Yeah,
You get that warm feeling
That's it.
of care,
Of love. It's being loved.
love, and that's powerful.
It is.
That can fuck with your psyche
Especially when you're, engineering that with other people.
on
so
purpose.
that-
On purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
You can feel a little guilty about it sometimes.
Yeah. Now you were running this domestically, correct?
Very little. So most of it was overseas.
Right.
But there was some domestic overlap
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Which is very atypical for the
Right.
job that I was in.
And I know we can't discuss all the countries you've been to, but you've been to a numerous amount of countries.
Yeah, probably close to 40.
Yeah. And we talked about some of your favorites food wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's incredible. Just from a life perspective, you got to see a big chunk of the world as well. Maybe not in a relaxing vacation state.
And this is one of
Did
the
you
reasons
enjoy it? I mean,
feel-
did you ever? You're like, man, this is a nice ass hotel. I mean, you were
Constantly, yeah.
you were a money launderer, dude. For
I've stayed in some of the nicest hotels in the world,
Yeah.
at some of the best restaurants, and I feel super blessed just to have had that experience. Getting to travel was a goal of mine when I was young, and so I've checked a lot of things off of my wish list while I was at it. And so it wasn't just this, it's terrible all the time. There
Right.
were lots of times where I was like, this is fucking
this is
awesome.
baller, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Private jets, the cars, the suits, the watches, the jewelry, the hotels. Yeah, I mean, you had to fit the part.
That's right. I think I had 40 bespoke suits at one time, and it was pretty fun in that regard.
Right. Yeah. But you needed those.
Right.
Did your level of education from a money laundering standpoint, you had to learn that skill.
Right.
Was that I'm assuming that was taught prior to you getting in, because obviously you went in as a hire of a money launderer, or that's where they put you once you were in.
Yeah, so doing what we would call like a covert finance operation.
Okay.
It was something that ended up happening later. It wasn't like the goal, like, hey, you're being hired as a covert finance officer.
Got
it just
it.
happened naturally.
Is that what you wanted? Like you had no idea you wanted to even get into money laundering. You just were like, oh, I'm going to be in the CIA. Dope.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be a recruiter. I was going to focus
okay.
on recruiting assets overseas and, the typical case officer
Sure.
job, which was, not the direction it went. But
And you volunteered for this.
everything is a volunteer
Everything's a
program.
volunteer
over there.
program.
Yeah. You don't get to pick it. But,
Right.
You get to say no. You can walk away if you want.
At any time you could have walked away.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you ever want to walk away?
No.
Never.
No, I wish I was still doing it.
You feel like you would do this your entire life?
I thought I was going to either die in the job or, try to convince them I could still do it at 90.
You're hell of an operative at 90.
They've had some people close to that age do some pretty serious things.
I can imagine. I think you and I were talking briefly, vaguely, about capabilities of the agency itself. The fact that you just said what you said, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Especially with all the technology out there right now from an intelligence gathering standpoint.
It's made it a lot harder to operate. Once ubiquitous technical surveillance becomes a part of the game, it's really changing the way that we have to conduct operations now. It's pretty hard for a long term, like as long as I did today, maintain a cover for that long with all the tech that's out there.
Yeah. While you were working for certain gangs, were there threats against your life, not from a standpoint of you being made, but just from a standpoint of you being associated?
Yeah, from rivals, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely.
Now, like, were you given security, or were you your own security? What did that look like?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that surprised me about the criminal world. I'll be careful what I say here.
Sure.
But there was a time where the organization that I was a part of, or pretending to be a part of, was in a very heated confrontation with another organized crime group. And I thought there would be all this pomp and circumstance over protecting, and it wasn't. Like, we'd be out 3 guys and 30 dudes from the other crew would come in, and people are like, hey, this is a Tuesday. This is what you signed up for. I was like, wait, where's all the movie style stuff we're going to do
where's the help?
To stand up here?
Yeah.
But there wasn't, as much as I thought there would be.
Yeah.
There's more like handle your business,
But also, too, I think, just like you said, the pros and cons of actually taking action in that situation. Does it help the profit?
Right. And so some of I was in one incident where it was me, 3 or 4 members of the organization I was a part of at the time who were older. They were OGs. And almost 40 people from a rival crew came to the place we were at. There's no security cameras, no nothing. And the advice I got wasn't, hey, get your gun ready, do this. The advice I got was, don't go to the bathroom alone. Don't get up and approach the bar alone. Sit here. It wasn't the, hey, let's get violent advice I thought I was about to get, but it was wise advice of,
sure,
here's how we're going to keep something from happening, not how we're going to do something like in the movies.
Right.
Because there's a lot of protocol in that world, right? And so a lot of times a rival crew is going to try to antagonize you into being the first one to make a mistake. And so, politicking and handling that situation with the proper protocol in that world is much more important than being able to pull out a baseball bat and start swinging.
And like you said, it's pretty organized. It's called organized crime for a reason.
That's right.
There are rules and stipulations, and we just were talking off camera about standards.
Yeah.
Physical standards. Guys would have to train jiu-jitsu.
So, yeah, in some of the clubs, or some of the chapters. So it's usually chapter specific.
Sure.
But some of the chapters, they'd say, you have to work out a certain number of times a week. You have to train in some martial art, whether it's boxing or jiu-jitsu, a certain number of times a week. When you carry money, you don't carry a gangster roll. You put the $1 bills on the outside and you make it thin. You don't want to look like a drug dealer.
Right.
When you get on your motorcycle and pull out of the bar, you're not screeching the wheels here. You're not burning out. You're not trying to draw attention because these guys do this for a living. It is their profession.
They're professional criminals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we can't get cops to train at all. You have professional criminals that literally have higher standards than law enforcement officers.
Well, one of the things I compare it to is, if you look at Afghanistan, some of the Taliban, that we were going after, you could pretty easily argue a lot less sophisticated, a lot less money support. But when you're fighting an adversary that is all about it, all day, every day, that's a major advantage for them to bridge a gap, in technical capability or money when they live life that way and you're not matching it,
Yeah. And the level of technology, I'm assuming, is probably there as well.
Oh yeah,
Probably along with internal information.
absolutely. I mean, you show up to a meeting, they'll select the phone, they'll rip your phone, see what's on it. These are not unsophisticated people.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm assuming too, like leaks from government organizations, they probably have people in there as well.
Absolutely. I think the most common thing you find is that one of the members is sleeping with somebody that works at a law enforcement agency who is then passing on information about whether there's an active investigation or more likely a rival club activity.
Sure. So you moved over $100 million in your time. Mm-hmm. Was that all in one mission?
No, just collectively over that
collectively
13
$100 million.
years, yeah.
And what was, and you and I even talked about, and you actually have a post on your Instagram, which we'll put in the show notes as well. You talked about some of the simplistic ways to clean money, casinos.
Oh yeah,
right, or even law enforcement agencies.
Right.
Yeah. So there's so obviously there's some ways there, but 100 million is not a little bit of money, right? That's a big chunk of change. In the big scheme of things, it's probably not that much money, right?
Not compared to organizations that are turning over $1 billion a month.
Yeah,
it's
right.
That's pretty small,
and they're cleaning $1 billion a month.
They have to. Yeah.
Just like you talked about, the depth of what needs to be done in order to do that is probably beyond most people's comprehension.
It's so broad. It's not just like one scheme.
Right. It's not like one shell company is doing it.
Yeah. It's not like there's just the money launderer for the Sinaloa cartel, right? They're diversified. They put a lot of things out there in case a few don't work. Same way they approach, dope loads, right? They expect a certain percentage to get seized, and that's just a cost of doing business for them.
Yeah. It's the tax. Yeah. Now, when you were in the process of laundering the money, was there a reporting system that you were doing to document all of this information, or was it just being done on the back end on your side from a governmental standpoint?
Yeah, we report everything.
Everything.
Yeah, you're writing up reports on everything.
Yeah. And you're writing these reports, obviously not in the bar next to the. Yeah.
No, you learn not to sleep very much.
Yeah.
Because you have to have, your cover.
Cue the Ambien.
Yeah. And then while everybody else goes to sleep, you're writing reports up. You're doing the job you don't want people to notice you're doing. So it's not all glitz and glamour.
Right. Yeah. Was that difficult having to do the work outside of the work? Was that finding time to do that, finding the place to do that, finding the means of communication to do that?
Yeah.
I could see how that could also get sketchy and or tedious.
Yeah. So we have, covert communications capabilities when you're overseas. We have ways to do this that I won't get into, but the work is tedious and monotonous if you do it right. The problem is when people start taking shortcuts. Let's say you're doing a surveillance detection route that should be 6 hours long. And you're like, I think I'm just going to short dick it a little bit and just do an hour. That's where stuff starts going wrong.
Sure. Yeah, shortcuts are never good. Was there anything that surprised you? Was there anything where you get into the money laundering stuff and there was technology that maybe they had that you weren't aware of?
What surprised me is how they use the court systems to help launder money sometimes. So one of the, upper end techniques to do this is to set up two companies in different jurisdictions. So say you got like country A and country B, and you create a trade agreement between both of those entities, which you secretly control both.
Okay.
Then you say, okay, for this trade deal, we're going to set up, an escrow, a mediator in country 3, who's going to make sure that everything goes right on both deals or on both sides. And then they're going to release the funds, let's say 25% once it's done being manufactured, 50% once it's shipped, and all this. So you have a legal jurisdiction making sure the trade deal goes right. One of the easiest ways to do this is to default on paying to yourself.
Yep.
And then this entity sues this one for defaulting. The court finds in their favor and orders you to pay. But in a lot of jurisdictions, they don't order you to just pay them directly. They will order you to pay the government, the court, and then the government will cash it out.
So the government's then now washing the money.
That's right.
Now, that's not only, is that domestically and internationally?
Oh, yeah.
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 And
the
now
technique is used in, different.
Are there certain countries that it's more favorable to do that in?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it changes a lot.
Yeah.
Good money launderers are extremely good at studying legal jurisdiction movements and at changing landscapes of the amenability of certain countries to allow that type of transaction to happen, or even to almost beg for it, right? So you see that with cryptocurrency now, which is massively involved in money laundering.
Yeah. And that was obviously, you were in it when crypto started kind of becoming increasingly popular. So
Right.
I'm assuming that learning curve had to have been pretty quick.
It was. So when it started, you had to go meet some dude in a park and hand him cash and buy, the crypto off of him back in the day. We're talking less than $1,000 a coin, when it started. And so we became super innovative on using cryptocurrency to move the money.
So I'm assuming as technology increases, the agency is going to have to either keep up, but they're probably well aware of things that are probably happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, the level of capability is probably beyond most people's comprehension.
Well, that's the advantage that we had, is we could collect how everybody else was doing it, especially from the viewpoint of my collection where I'm around all this money laundering and stuff. And then, we have smart people too that innovate on top of that. And so I think we were probably ahead of the curve for most of it, at certain times.
Yeah. Do you know who's behind Bitcoin?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, you do. You fucking liar. You know who's behind it, Matt. It's okay. You don't have to tell me.
I heard a rumor that we were.
Compounding interest behind all that. How does that work out?
Oh, as far as making money off of it?
Great question, Nick.
Yeah, that is a really good question. I didn't see that coming. It just popped out.
What was
the
the question again, Nick?
Compounding interest on profit made off money, like the Bitcoin instance.
Compounding interest, a profit made off Bitcoin.
Yeah, so not even just the interest, right? You're looking at the fluctuation of the currency price. And towards the beginning, you're getting massive fluctuation.
Yeah.
You might get 30, 60% movement in a day. And, money laundering doesn't happen in 10 minutes. To do it right takes time. And you're going to have to ride that fluctuation. Luckily for us at the time, it was just skyrocketing. And so we were able to roll that back into our op fund essentially and use that money to not charge the taxpayer essentially for some of the stuff we were doing.
So you say it takes time, it doesn't take more than 10 minutes. So where does the unclaimed money sit in the meantime?
So here's a fallacy that people have about how money laundering works.
Okay.
They think you take $1.
Okay.
And then it's like a Schoolhouse Rock episode where it's like, here goes that $1 through all the steps.
Sure.
And then here's where Pablo Escobar gets it at the end. That's not how it works. There are systems in place that are constantly going, front companies, everything.
So it's always moving.
Right. And so if you handed me $1 to wash right now, I might pay you later today or tomorrow or next week with money that's been moving through my system for 9 months already. And so it's much more tedious, than people think to do it correctly.
Sure.
But you get a lot of advantages too. So if you're using an entity, let's say an LLC or a company, as one of the hops for the money, it might sit there for 30, 45 days in that entity. But what you're getting is an interest-free loan for that company to compete in its market.
Sure.
Right. So if it's a cupcake stand that you're using,
Yeah.
then it's pretty easy for that company to drive out its competition locally, who's taking an 8% bank loan to fund their cupcake business. So that's a downside I think a lot of people don't understand about, how does money laundering affect me? If you're an entrepreneur and own your own business, money laundering affects you.
Oh, 100%. Now, you and I talked briefly. There are some fronts that are legitimate fronts, but was it Jet?
Yeah, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, I think it was an air show this weekend. There are some fronts that are legitimate businesses that are involved in money laundering and may not even know it.
That's right. Yeah, the company's not always witting to what's happening. Or maybe you have, one insider threat at the company who's facilitating it, but nobody else knows. It's not always this Acme Incorporated where everybody, works in Panama and they're in on it together.
Sure.
It's much more effective if the company doesn't realize they're being used as a pass-through for the money. But it's easy too, because whenever you use a company, you're benefiting it. Or when you use a bank, you're benefiting the bank. So they're not particularly out to look for stopping making money off of you.
Tracking. If you're in law enforcement, you already know. There's a gap between traditional defensive tactics and what actually happens on the street. And that gap is why we built Effective Fitness Combatives. EFC is a curriculum specifically built for policing. It utilizes the principle, concepts, and certain techniques from jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and striking, integrated with weapons into the environment of policing. It's structured training designed for real resistance, real stress, and real-world application. In 2025 alone, we worked with over 800 agencies and trained more than 3,500 officers. Our instructor cadre brings nearly 400 years of combined law enforcement experience. Now, these are high-level jiu-jitsu practitioners, wrestlers, mixed martial artists, and some are actually subject matter experts vetted at the local and federal levels. Both Level 1 and Level 2 are instructor-level certification courses, and both are post-approved or post-certified in most states. Level 1 establishes the foundational system and teaching structure, while the Level 2 builds on the foundation and moves into reality-based training, integrating simunitions, UTMs, box drills, and vehicle extractions so that instructors can confidently teach under pressure and complexity. We run courses all over the country. Courses are also available for private security and military personnel. We offer custom courses tailored to agencies' needs. We're also in the process of launching a dedicated SWAT combatives course built specifically for tactical teams. To see upcoming courses, check the 2026 calendar by visiting efcombatives.com. And this kind of goes into what we were talking about yesterday as well, and we're going to get into it here later, but the fact that law enforcement is so uneducated on how this works, to where money laundering isn't necessarily a pursued area for, let's just say, state and not necessarily what you did, but from like a state and federal standpoint.
Right. I think it's becoming, more of a focus, specifically with targeting, the Mexican drug trafficking organizations. It's becoming more necessary for law enforcement to understand how it works.
Yeah.
And, like we talked about before, money laundering is a unique crime because outside of a crime of passion, it's always there. It's the reason to commit crimes. And so it's one of the most prevalent crimes. Sure. It may not be $50 million a month, but even if you're just selling dope on a street corner, you got to wash the money at some time.
You got to wash it. What do you think most people get wrong about organized crime? Just like the average Joe sitting on his couch watching Fox News, what do you think is the number one thing people get wrong about organized crime?
But they're all tough guy sociopaths. That's what people get wrong.
Yeah. Probably pretty unassuming.
The good criminals
are very
don't look like criminals. They're super unassuming. They're the equivalent of like a gray man, in our world.
Sure.
You don't try to draw attention to yourself if you're good at doing it.
So just don't call yourself Dr. Evil.
Right. Yeah. Then you got it. You never get caught.
Yeah, right. That's interesting. Were there some guys that you saw that were pure evil?
Yeah. It was less than I thought there would be.
Right.
But when you do see it, it's especially for the first time, it's like, brutal. Whoa, that's what that, you can feel being around people like that.
You can feel it. Yeah. Did you feel as if, was it hard for you to maintain composure? Meaning like, I want to take this guy down now because of this, because it's purely against my moral compass.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You have that.
That's tough.
It's this like hero complex, thing pulling at you. Because if you join because you want to do good and you want to, for me, I hate a bully. Can't stand a bully. Yeah. And so seeing that type of behavior brings out a very visceral response in me that has to be tampered down, quite often if you're supposed to be that bully's friend.
Yeah. And I think some people have seen the movie Hitman or movies where they think that these people like yourself are robots and you're able to just shut it off. No.
No, and I see a lot of people talking about, oh yeah, they're sociopaths, or you have to be a sociopath. I'm super empathetic. It's one of the biggest advantages I had.
Because you can relate to people.
That's it. And that's what it's about. It's about people.
You can relate. I mean, so you were so young. Where did you connect with most people? What was your approach?
So this is something that's actually developed that we knew would be the approach when I was in training, that I was developing the persona. So they know like what audience essentially you fit the best with.
Okay.
And so, I was thinking like, European women would be like a good audience for me, or like, I had all these grandiose things. And then they're like, I think the best pairing for you would be with an older man who looks at you like he's mentoring you. I was like, what? No, no.
Bummer.
So you want me to target old dudes?
Eastern European women off the list.
Yeah. So like I quit. I'm out.
Yeah.
But no, that was the approach. Is I cultivated a personality of being a great mentee, and you can do an ego up approach with people like that because you just want to learn from them and you value their advice, and you're one of the only people that's actually taking it and running with it. So I had a lot of father figure type people who were very important in that world, take me under their wing, protect me, give me an easier path than a lot of other people, just because, they were sponsoring me or they were my mentor.
Yeah. That's huge.
It was an easy way to dodge having to do things that I didn't want to do.
Correct. Yeah. You almost got a fast track.
Yeah.
Because you're able to kind of play that son role.
Yeah. And even if you don't tell everybody, like you don't bring it up all the time.
Sure.
But people in the organization know, like, hey, he's super tight with
so-and-so,
the boss over here. And it's kind of like an unsaid thing where you get treated a little bit better, to be honest.
Yeah. How did that, you probably got a lot of skills from that as well. You probably learned things that weren't necessarily, because that does become your life experience.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah, and I didn't have a lot of that hands-on when I was a child.
Sure.
Like, hey, here's how to change the oil. Here's how to, change a tire. Here's how to do all this stuff. And I ended up learning a lot of those skills about being an adult from some of the people in that world.
Yeah. I guess that's got to be a struggle. Like, that's got to be a pull on your psyche too, between good versus evil. Because obviously in your mind, in your soul, your intentions, you're doing the righteous thing. You're doing good.
Right.
Were there things that you stumbled upon that were not associated with your mission that still benefited the intelligence community?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, are you required to react on that? Did you just report it, document it, and then kind of move on from there?
More the second, right? So my job was to collect information predominantly.
Right.
Right. And so you write up everything, you pass it along. Sometimes, most of the time, you don't even know, was it of value, unless you get follow-on RFIs, like requests for information, like, hey, in your last report, you put this. We have several questions more about heading down that path. So you can tell, oh, they must be interested in that topic a little bit.
Right.
But it's super informal.
So the difference between what you did and a spy, those are two different things, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Completely two different path routes within the agency.
Well, so for us, a spy is a foreigner that's betraying their country to sell information. We're intelligence officers or case officers, and a spy would be more of a derogatory term in our world.
Got it.
They're the traitors.
They're the traitors, and it's completely siloed.
Right.
I think people wouldn't be surprised to know that government agencies operate in silos as well, even if it's the same agency.
That was a huge surprise for me, how stovepiped some of the information sharing could be. Even, internally between offices, you would think by watching a movie that you've got all these different agencies and they're all in this joint task force and they're working like perfectly together.
No. And that can become inherently dangerous.
It is.
And it probably has been.
It is. Yes, it has.
Were there times you were like, what the fuck are you thinking? Like, now when something like that would happen, you don't have to be specific. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you would have to write it up, I'm assuming. Would there be any type of explanation to you as to no?
I mean, sometimes...
just so you're aware of what's kind of going on.
Yeah, so sometimes we would do an overlap with a certain law enforcement agency that was focused on dope. And I would know that they had a UC in the room or two at the time. And
you would know, but would they know you?
No.
So nobody knew you from like a local or federal or state aspect?
There was one, it was the assistant special agent in charge at one of the field offices in the state that I was predominantly working on, and then the attorney general's office. Yeah. But outside of that, it was not shared.
Yeah, that's all classified. Mm-hmm. Probably better that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's just such a high likelihood of that information leaking out at some point that you just don't risk it.
Were there any other credible threats from, like, you know, obviously the 1%er side, but from other organizations, whether it's terrorist groups operating in different countries outside of the country that you may have been working in?
No, I mean, definitely in the drug traffic, like the cartel world,
sure,
that's a constant thing.
Sure,
so,
right.
You know, if somebody would have said, hey, there's a credible threat to your life, I would be like, yeah, no shit. That's kind of the point.
Isn't there always, though?
Yeah, in that part, there definitely is. So you just kind of learn to, I don't know, it becomes normal to you at some point.
Yikes.
But you've got, you know, too, you know, being comparative, you've got a lot of guys that have been in that life since they were children.
It's crazy.
And a lot of people in the cartel world, there's a very similar psychology to, like, say, an African child soldier with somebody who's been exposed to extreme violence from a very, very young age and participated in it for a very, very young age. And it rewires your brain to do this, right? I mean, we see the effects of some of our best people, let's say like a tier 1 operator who does, you know, this many years exposed to it and the negative effects it can have when you're trying to help them, when you're trying to treat them at times, right? For whatever extent the DoD does that. Compare that to somebody who's been doing it since they were 7 with no guidance, who wasn't suitable for it, and is just trying to figure it out on their own with alcohol, drugs, and whatever. You get somebody that's a pretty different mentality at that point.
And does the government use that to its advantage sometimes?
Yeah, of course. So you can profile, you know, that type of person. And a lot of times what's interesting is let's say childhood. You get people who missed out on being a kid, and you can bond with people over that more easily than some of the negative stuff.
Sure. Right? The sociopathic approach, do they try to numb you at all to certain things in your training? Do they make you say, hey, you're going to see this stuff, you're going to have to understand this stuff, you're going to have to not react to this stuff?
Oh yeah. Yeah, so I wouldn't say it's like forcing being a sociopath, but you get a reality check of, hey, what you're doing is the big kid table here, and it's not like the movies. This is real.
Right.
And you better get your head on straight, and this is a serious business to be in. That's definitely impressed upon you the whole time. This is not a joke. This is not a place to have fun. This is a no joke, serious business that you're in.
And there's obviously some of your, I guess if you could call them coworkers, to where they are not here today.
That's right, yeah.
And the government hasn't claimed them.
There were a few people from my program that were lost that I don't think is public knowledge.
Yeah. We can assume, though, right?
I mean, you would naturally think so.
You would naturally think so, that the government doesn't bat 100 all the time.
No, nobody could. Yeah.
Never has.
And we have a lot of people that we put into some extremely precarious situations, especially young. You know, we use our youngest officers to do the most aggressive things that we do because it's less likely that a foreign intelligence service has made book on you and identified you as a U.S. intelligence officer at the time.
Right. Do you feel as if, I mean, obviously programs like this have been going on for for years, right? Like the whole Kennedy thing and so on and so forth. Did you have questions about that? Did you ever have questions about certain people in history?
I mean, internally you do.
Yeah. I was just always curious about that.
I never asked, right? You just don't ask, especially when you're in the program that I was.
Right.
Asking questions about stuff that you're not assigned to is a great way to have a counterintelligence investigation opened up on you. And, that translates to the criminal world too. Everybody knows you don't ask direct questions about if somebody has committed a crime, right? Like,
right.
Hey, how was that murder last week?
Yeah.
It's just not something that ever comes up. So you stifle the curiosity. And, for me, it was very important to make it very clear. Hey, I'm not here to probe for information that I'm not supposed to
I'm here to do my job.
That's it.
That's incredible to have at 19, though. So you weren't a normal 19-year-old.
I wouldn't think so.
Because I was not fucking doing anything close to what you're doing at 19 years old. Yeah. What a interesting path, Matt. I think that, I appreciate you being so open about your journey, because I think that a lot of people will see the movies and read the books and see the headlines and the conspiracy memes on Instagram and react to them.
Yeah.
Especially in light of, the current administration, what's kind of going on right now as well with all the wars and all that kind of stuff too.
A lot of fear mongering out there.
A lot of fear mongering out there. A lot of anxiety out there as well. Was there a point in your career where you felt that, you know what, I think I need a break? Was there ever a time you took a deep sigh like you just did, and you were like, maybe I want to go to Maui for 2 weeks and just be Matt?
Yeah, when I was working, on the cartel side, it definitely, the amount of energy that you have to bring to keep, being at that level and be in the room can be extremely draining at times.
Sure.
And so you'll notice yourself, like, I'm not operating at full capacity here. Like,
sure, I'm
about 30% of my max, brain capacity here. Maybe I need a break.
Yeah.
But you don't bring it up.
Right. I mean, I guess as a part of you being a human, even in cover, you could say, hey guys, I'm sick. Hey, I need a break. Hey, like, no? Or was it just
I've never done that.
No. That'd have been a red flag for them.
Well, I mean, one thing is that you're afraid of getting yanked, right, and assigned to something else if you say you have a problem.
From an agency perspective, not from okay.
Yeah. And then, another thing is I was always cognizant that there were people working harder than me out there. There were people putting in more hours than me. There were people that were, giving more of themselves than me. And I never thought it was never thought it'd be respectful for me to say, I'm the one that needs a timeout while they keep working.
That's interesting that it was still also run like a business.
Yeah.
It's almost like I want to go, I want to be the best. I want to show them. Was it I want to show them how good I am? Or was it just, because I feel like, one, you can only do so much in your role without being like obvious of who you are, right? So it felt like you still had to prove yourself.
Every day.
Every day.
Even at the end, you're 17 years in, what have you done for me lately? Prove yourself. And it's a lot like, let's say the generation ahead of us, our parents' generation, where it's a point of pride to say, yeah, I did 20 years at that company, never took a sick day, right? And you kind of carry that mentality around with you as, I take pride in the fact that I'm pushing through.
That's cool.
Maybe it's not healthy, but at the time that was
definitely not healthy, brother.
That's the thought process.
No, it's definitely not healthy. I mean, that is burnout 101. I mean, your brain circuitry can only handle so much capacity before it gets fried.
Yeah.
So how did you decompress? Or did you decompress?
No, not at the time.
Did you have to drink a lot? Like to be a part of, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say you have to, but if you're not doing anything, if you're not doing narcotics and you're not drinking, like the less of those things you do,
red flag,
the more red flags they've got.
Yeah.
And drinking is a huge part of that culture.
Sure.
We'd meet up 11 o'clock. People would start drinking at the bar. You're going till 3 a.m. every single day for a long time.
Your poor liver.
Yeah. What liver?
Yeah. 1/4 of it's currently working right now.
right.
Hopefully it can regenerate. Yeah. I can assume that became obviously physically taxing on your body. I mean, luckily you were relatively young, and so obviously your ability to adapt was probably good. Now, once you started getting into the swing of things, did you feel as if you advanced in, I don't want to say like, I guess, rank within the agency to where could you have been an instructor? Could you have done what your mentor did for you?
They didn't ask me to do the instructor thing on the way out, but I could have done what we call walking through the front door, and taken more of a line officer job at the end, but I chose not to.
Sounds boring.
It definitely did at the time.
Yeah. So, can we talk about why you're able to now do this?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you? So obviously, 17 years, and now you're out, and now we're on a podcast talking about your previous chapter in your life. How'd that happen?
Yeah. So, when you first start, the idea is you're going to be a quiet professional, and if anybody ever finds out about this, that's a failure. You're a failure at this job if people know about it. So 17 years in, my program was exposed. A foreign intelligence service had identified the people that were in my sub-program and had then leaked it on the dark web. So basically anybody who was an adversary was aware of it. And because they had our faces with biometrics now, there was just no way to travel through an airport anymore. And we do this job overseas, so it's kind of a strike 1, 2, and 3 all at the same time.
And then you just came home.
Yeah. And it's a very sudden, thing. Even transitioning between different covers or between assignments or getting out, I think it's a lot more abrupt than people assume or is in the movies. It's not like you get to go wrap up all your relationships in tidy little bows and say goodbye to people. You just are told you're not showing up to that job tomorrow, and that's it. It's just over.
Yeah. And you were not domestic when that occurred, correct? So you basically just had to come home as quick as possible.
I was in Europe, luckily.
You were in Europe?
Luckily, I was not in a country that was hostile to us.
Yeah. And then you just go get debriefed, and then they figure out what to do. Check for credible threats, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so the debrief, because it was a counterintelligence issue, I won't go into the details of how they handle that, but they're trying to assess the damage at that point. So it wasn't even like there was no parade.
Sure. Yeah. And then at what point are you able to walk out the front door and do this?
Yeah, so even at that point, I'm still thinking, well, nobody's ever going to know. And then I was approached by somebody that would be the rank of a 3-star general in our world and told, hey, we think there are parts of this that it would be beneficial, for you to talk about. Essentially, a lot of what I did, the adversary already knows, right?
Sure.
The only people who don't know are the good guys. So there's no harm in it, but there could be value from their perspective.
Yeah. And now once that happened, your program became a wash.
That's right.
Correct?
Yeah.
Just
They had other versions of what I did.
Right.
But my specific one was stood down, yeah.
right. And there wasn't very many of you.
No.
No.
No, we didn't all meet each other, but as far as I was told, there were not very many of us.
Coworkers.
Right, yeah. Which is an interesting thing to have colleagues, right, that are so unique, like so similar to you, but that are out there, but you don't know. You never met them.
Would it have been possible for them to be in the same place you were at?
Sure. Yeah.
Did that ever cross your mind?
Constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never knew if my place had somebody else in the room, and you never knew if law enforcement had somebody else in the room, or a foreign law enforcement organization could have somebody in the room too. There were several times when I was in the criminal world where I thought, I bet this person this is just a hypothetical.
Sure.
Like a Norwegian law enforcement officer or something.
Yeah. Especially if you operate overseas. I'm assuming in Europe, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, wherever.
Yeah.
Where obviously other countries' intelligence agencies are also involved with it as well.
Yeah, they got people that do this for a living too.
conspiracy theory. What if it's just a bunch of intelligence? It's just all intelligence officers action of criminal organization. It's
that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. No, I think that well, we we briefly touched on it last night about the most powerful gang in the world.
It's us. Yeah.
Gang.
By far.
Yeah. I think that's, I think if you worked for the government in any capacity, in a law enforcement sense or an intelligence sense, you're very aware of that. Obviously, you may not be aware of all the capabilities of such, but you are aware of the power of the government entity.
And so are the criminals too.
Right.
And so, when we teach people how to do this trade now, one of the things I always preach is don't go in there like they're the biggest thing in the room, right? Don't have a fanboy of the target going on like they're the big bad boogeyman.
Got it.
We're the strength in the room, right? You're playing for the New York Yankees here. They're playing for the minor leagues. You have to have that approach. Don't underestimate their sophistication, their capabilities.
Of course.
But don't go in there being afraid of them. They should be on the lookout for us.
Yeah. If you care about being capable physically, mentally, then this is for you. A lot of people don't actually need more motivation. They need structure. That's why we built Effective Fitness Training. It's a structured strength conditioning program, not random workouts, not trend-based programming, not chasing aesthetics. It's progressive training built around strength, durability, conditioning, and longevity. Every phase has intent. Every lift has a purpose. We focus on building real-world capacity, the kind that carries over into your job, your life, into the stuff that actually matters. You get clear programming with built-in progression and conditioning that supports strength instead of interfering with it. Mobility so that you stay durable, recovery guidance, and coaching so you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. It's simple, it's structured, and it works if you work. If you want one program that covers everything, strength, speed, endurance, bodybuilding, mobility, recovery, nutrition guidance, and coaching, go to effective.fitness/stay ready. We'll take care of the programming, you show up and train. Was there ever a time in a situation, again, you don't have to be specific, where you felt like you were made?
Yeah, a couple times.
Yeah. How would you have addressed that?
Yeah, so I'll reference one time specifically.
Sure.
I was in a bar with a member of the organization that I was a part of, and he didn't tell me that some other members were coming up. I didn't know these people. They were from out of town, and I'd never met them before. They sat down in a surprise. We were in a booth, and they sat on the end and kind of like pushed me in to the booth.
Oh.
And I started getting a lot of direct questions at this point. And then afterwards, they're like, hey, we're going to take a trip. And they had a truck out in the parking lot. They put me in the back in the middle seat, sat on both sides of me. And I thought they were going to drive me out to the middle of nowhere and put a bullet in my head.
Yeah. Direct questions as in, are you a cop?
Are you affiliated with the U.S. government?
Yeah.
One of them was a ridiculous question, right? So this is an outlaw motorcycle club I'm talking about. And one of the guys was like, have you ever worked for the U.S. government? And I said, no. And he said, well, I heard that you were in the military before. I was like, you and me both know that's not the fucking question that you're asking right now. Right? Like, that this club and a bunch of the other ones were founded by vets. So don't act like that's a negative. I was in the military. I'm trying to answer to what the spirit of your question was.
Sure.
Not, so don't try to pull that. You have to match aggression with aggression a lot of times.
Oh yeah. That's a great tactic as well. And I think your military career too, they have access to all that information.
Yeah. The fact I served in the Navy can be found by a good investigator. Sure.
And then when you got out, like obviously the NSA stuff wasn't in there, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah. It just looked like I was a normal Navy person.
Yeah. What did it say your MOS was?
CTR.
Okay. Okay.
But there's a lot of people who are cryptos in the Navy that aren't assigned to the
Understood.
NSA. Right?
Understood. So venturing out, you reached out to us basically wanting to help law enforcement.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, what do you think is the biggest misinterpretation of money laundering from a local or state or even federal standpoint? Because we even talked about some of the federal agencies that have little to no money laundering training.
Surprisingly.
Yeah, there was it a conference you were speaking at?
They invited me down for like a day-long talk to one of the groups that was
Sure.
focused on some cartel money stuff. And I was shocked at how many of the officers in the room, which was most of them, had never taken an official anti-money laundering course. You know, these are guys that are focused on going after Mexican drug trafficking organization money. And this is not a negative on them, right?
Right.
These are people looking for resources that want to do the job the right way and had far less access to training than I thought.
Why do you think it wasn't prioritized or is not prioritized?
You know, I think historically it's been looked at as like a tack on charge.
Sure.
You know, we're
Okay.
going to prosecute the predicate crime. We're going to go after the dope. And then we can get 5 years for money laundering as an afterthought, rather than, you know, recognizing that some of our biggest law enforcement wins against organized crime have been money focused. You know, Al Capone, Pablo Escobar.
Yeah, profit.
That's how we get the big boys, is with the money.
Yeah. And do you feel as if it's just the lack of education or it's just the lack of, they would rather have the dope and or the murder charges or whatever the case may be?
I think it's just a lack of resource and a lack of framing it in the right way. I think a lot of law enforcement officers are under the false illusion that you have to have some like calculus degree to launder money or to understand the topic, but it's not that at all.
Right. From your perspective too, from just like a local standpoint, like you're just like your average patrol guy, pull somebody over.
Yeah.
What are certain things that they can look for that might be a clue of, hey, I might want to document this more. And maybe they don't have anything to hold them more to even further the investigation, but they can pick up on clues or something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's just use the casino thing
Sure.
as an example. You get a lot of people, you know, pulling over cars that are leaving casinos because you think they're probably a potential DUI.
Sure.
But when somebody's going to launder money, let's say under $10,000, they're bringing it with them, right? So it's the coming in, and you'll see, you know, somebody that's probably nervous about what they're about to do. If you are playing with the criminal organization's money, you don't want to lose. Right? You don't want to say like, I took $25K in here and then
Lost 10.
You know, hands of blackjack later, I'm down to 5. Whoopsie. Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pressure,
Sure.
especially on the lower street level guys who are moving it, to not mess it up or to not be suspected as pocketing the money or something like that. So,
And I'm assuming there's somewhat of an acceptable loss percentage there. Like if they walk in with 20 and they lose 2, it's probably not that big of a deal.
I was going to say exactly that, probably
Yeah.
about 10% each way.
Yeah, okay, that was
and
our-
also not trying to double the money either. You're trying to play in a strategy
that's
that
a flag.
minimizes loss, not maximizes the gain.
Basically just looking to break even.
That's it.
Just to clean it.
Yep.
Yeah. So even just like that street level stuff. And again, that's the stuff that law enforcement isn't really either privy to in training, or it's just not a focus. It's more about the DUI or the narcotics or the guns, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, so let's take another scheme, for example, fake roadside assistance money laundering schemes.
Okay.
Right? So they'll set up an entity that says, if you're stuck on the side of the road, we'll come change your tire, we'll
Sure.
do whatever. And then they say, the person paid me in cash. And they just have all these fake roadside assistance things. It never happened. They take the dope money and say it was for doing this car stuff.
It's so easy.
But what they're bad at doing is the paperwork, you know, to back it up. What we would call cover backstopping,
Sure.
right, is just not there. They get lazy with it, right? So if you're doing, you know, a pullover or a highway interdiction or something like that, let's look at the paperwork for what are you out here doing? Why are you carrying that cash? Oh, I just, you know, fixed some guy's truck down the road here and he gave me $15,000, you know, in cash for it. You know, where's the other proof that you were up to that activity?
Now that level of investigation and that level, let's just say suspect, that's obviously going to be pretty low level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the guys you were dealing with, they're not going to make that mistake. No.
They rehearse almost like we did at the agency, right?
So they get training.
Yeah. They're
Yeah.
practicing, you know, their answers to live their cover. They know that they're going to get separated when they're pulled
Sure.
over, and they're going to get asked, you know, what did you have for lunch? Who paid? What did the other person have? How long have you been in the car? They know. So they will rehearse over and over before they make the run to be ready for this questioning.
That's sophistication.
It is.
Interesting that people, we kind of talked about what it would look like if there was like an episode of Matt's life of what it would look like, and you're like, episode 1 through 4 would be pretty boring.
Yeah, you fall asleep.
Yeah, or seasons 1 through 4 would be pretty boring.
Right.
Then episode 5 would be awesome, right?
Yeah.
Or I say awesome, exciting. It would have more action. I think I say awesome in a sense of adrenaline, whether that's good or bad.
Sure.
Just kind of want to be clear there. I think that law enforcement as a whole should be more well-rounded as it pertains to picking up on things like that. Because I feel as if it can lead to bigger and broader things like human trafficking, narcotics, weapons, so on and so forth.
Definitely.
Terroristic potential threats or assets or whatever. You know, I mean, again, we talk about, the sleeper cell at the park kind of fear-mongering on, on the interwebs. Well, yes, those threats are threatable and or real, and they do exist. I feel like it all starts off with just that local interaction. I mean, how many, look at Timothy McVeigh, for example. Mm-hmm. It was a patrol stop. It was a traffic stop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like, there are so many street-level traffic stops that can lead to potentially saving lives, right? And or stopping organized crime, crimes of profit, let's just call it that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And so I feel as if we need to get that education out there. That's why we're really excited to work with you to be able to get that kind of training available for law enforcement. Even if it's at just the patrol level all the way up to the federal level, making people aware of what you did. Because obviously, again, after talking to you, I was like, I don't know shit. Like, I mean, I literally, like, after our conversation, I could have stayed up till 3 a.m. learning not even a 0.5% about what you know. And I was like, holy moly. Like, this could be tied into so many other areas of law enforcement that could be so beneficial.
Law enforcement's at such a natural disadvantage initially in it, right? People now who focus on money laundering for an organization. Right now you see a lot of the Chinese money laundering organizations here taking the dope money, the bulk cash. These are people who do this professionally all the time. And so if you're a law enforcement officer that was working outlaw motorcycle clubs yesterday, and now you're trying to do a $10 million money laundering case that's a romance scam or something like that.
Sure.
You have to be pretty dang diverse, whereas on the criminal side, they can be really pigeonholed and focused.
Yeah.
It's a natural advantage for them.
Yeah. I want to talk about two other things. You talked about being an undercover and the type of personality traits one should have from a law enforcement standpoint and your knowledge. Where do you feel like law enforcement doesn't do a good job? It does not do a good job.
I don't think that law enforcement is built to properly assess the most suitable people just for that job specifically, because the same characteristics that make a good somebody that writes tickets or something like that are in no way the same characteristics that make somebody good at working undercover. In fact, they would probably be horrible at them,
Sure.
each way. And so one of the things that my organization didn't do was say that you're working in these slots as a promotion, or you work your way up by doing good work at something else to get here. If you're right for it, you're right for it from the beginning. You don't work your way into it. And I'm not saying that it would be easy for law enforcement to adjust that. I'm just saying that was something that gave my place an advantage over the way that law enforcement is set up right now.
Yeah. And I'm assuming too, obviously the capabilities of your organization were obviously a lot more in depth of how to determine where you should be and what you should be doing. That makes sense. And I think obviously the pool of individuals. I think too, sometimes law enforcement might be a little too harsh on, because there's some guys that I thought would make great cops that didn't pass background investigation. Yeah. But sometimes I feel like that trait of, and again, sometimes it was just like they smoked weed within 3 years or whatever, and they couldn't be a cop or whatever. And it's like, that should not be, in my opinion, that should not be a deal breaker.
No.
Like, they may have so many other traits that they could potentially become a good undercover, a good UC, or whatever the case they want to be called.
I mean, you're not looking for choir boys
No,
to do
no.
this. And
You don't want that.
no.
Right.
What you want, so let's just take a case officer or somebody,
Sure.
from my world. You break the law for a living. Espionage is illegal in every country in the world.
Right.
So you're looking for somebody who can effectively break the rules, but not your rules. They'll break everybody else's rules,
Got it, I'm tracking.
but not the boss's rules. And I think a lot of times, we joke the difference between a criminal and a case officer is who your boss is, right? And so a lot of times the qualities that make a good criminal would make, a good person on our side, right? You're either going to be Elliot Ness or Al Capone when you grow up kind of thing.
Sure. How would you change that process for law enforcement if you were chief for a day? Mm-hmm. Chief Matt, what does that look like?
So I think I would establish more of a covert recruiting effort.
Okay.
Because once people now with technology, once you go to the academy, right? Once you post on Facebook, here's me graduating. 5 years later, you get pulled into a UC assignment and you're out there. And so if you're not working for the feds, let's say your state, that means you work in the state that you live, which is not how we do stuff. I could be on the other side of the world, right? So with the technology that's out there, I think you have to groom people ahead of time if you can, and get them as early on as you can to do that type of work.
Yeah. I could see how people that could think that would be too much. Not from my perspective, but just from like the general population.
Yeah.
For sure. Now, were there any situations where you were involved in where the state and or local had UCs in there and you were like, they're going to fuck this up?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
You think it was a training issue? You think it was just a common sense issue?
I think it was a common sense issue. The thing I'm specifically thinking of right now, which was a controlled dope buy that I was in the room for. They didn't know I was there. They looked wrong. They acted wrong. They dressed wrong. Everything it looked like if the law enforcement officers had Googled how to look like an undercover cop.com, and they just, you can just tell this person is, they're living in an act right now. There's no genuine about them.
Yeah. And these are local?
This was federal.
Federal
people, yeah.
Why am I not surprised? And that's potentially, that's just an officer's safety issue at that point.
Yeah.
You're putting people at jeopardy. Even yourself, even though if you haven't been made or they have even no idea, you're still at jeopardy of just being in the same room.
Yeah, I think some of the I'd say the top 7 out of 10 most dangerous situations I've been in were not because I was about to get made by the target, but because of some internal or support, failure to maintain the cover that I was doing around it.
But the other federal agencies didn't necessarily communicate with the agency on.
No.
Yeah.
It's all stovepiped, yeah.
Yeah. But you could probably pick it up pretty quick.
Yeah, so could the criminals, yeah.
Yeah. Did they ever react?
The criminals? Mm-hmm. No, so that was something that actually surprised me, how cool they were about it.
So they knew, but they just didn't do anything.
Right. So the thing I'm thinking of happened in a strip club. It was a BYOB club, and some of the girls were going around saying, like, hey, we know, just to let you guys know there's some cops in here. Everybody knew, but nobody did anything. It wasn't like the movies were like, oh, let's go whack those guys.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're professionals, and they're there to make money, not catch heat. And so I was pretty shocked at how calm and just another day at the office. Now they stopped doing stuff.
Sure, of course. Stuff. Yeah.
But it's just like, okay, they're around again. Pause. We'll pick it back up when they're gone.
Well, you kill 2 cops on American soil, there's going to be some heat.
You're done. Whatever organization that is.
Yeah, they're gonna. Yeah, I was going to say they're going to come down on you from all angles. The alphabet soup is coming for you.
Yep.
Did the agency ever help out with things like that? Like, officer was killed. Did they ever utilize resources to help find someone who ever, potentially killed a law enforcement officer?
I'm sure that they did,
sure
especially, in Mexico. But that would have been more like counter narcotics center
Sure.
for us, which is not where I worked. But you were aware, there was
Right.
always information put out like, hey, if you stumble across this, keep your ears open. But it wasn't so much like for me, a direct tasking of, hey, go find out, who did this to this cop.
Understood. Yeah.
Other people probably got that, but
Sure.
not me.
I want to briefly touch on your training, mainly from like a weapons perspective, hands-on training perspective. Did you have any grappling or martial arts experience at the age of, let's just say, 18 or below?
No.
No. So 19 and above, obviously you went to boot camp and all that stuff, and you had probably some exposure there, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I had a little bit of exposure to jiu-jitsu when I was there.
Yeah.
A lot of firearms training while I was still in the military that happened. Even specialized stuff for the NSA deployments.
Sure.
Not to the level like, some OTC or something like that, but yeah, there's plenty of that. But from a hand-to-hand standpoint, like, no, not in the first 4 years for sure.
Yeah. And then obviously transitioning to NSA, I mean, just like you said, you had some firearms experience, but that was just kind of more of like everybody needed to do that to be prepared for.
Yeah, at the
whatever
NSA
happened.
time. That was just like a safety thing for deploying with some of the special mission units that
Sure.
cadre was deploying
Sure.
with.
And then obviously when you went into the agency, that's probably where you got the majority of your firearms training, jiu-jitsu training. Now, obviously, when you're at the mansion, you were kind of by yourself. Did they bring in people to obviously like work with you there?
Very little, much less than people would think.
Okay.
It was only later on, towards the end, I actually had somebody come over from an Army special mission unit that got hired as a contractor. They were an assaulter for 20 years. They were in
Sure.
the Army for 30 years that I got to do one-on-one training with for Glock. And it's like super cool. It was a dream
Yeah,
come true for me.
yeah.
But that was way later in the career.
Was there any CQB training at all?
Very, very little.
Very little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, especially for me, I'm posing as somebody in the finance world.
Who's not supposed to have those skills.
Yeah, I'm not Jason Bourne or anything. So,
Yeah. But you obviously there's got to be a self-protection, like
Right.
a capability there.
yeah, we had training on, if you're overseas, you need to acquire a weapon, how to take one off of local law enforcement from whatever country you're in, stuff like that.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I wasn't a hitter, so there was no need to go up to.
Sure. And your ability to, like, I think, one thing that I was really impressed with yesterday was just the amount of detail. Really just as it pertains to anything you did. And again, you can even reference movies in this case, right? We talked about Argo,
Yeah.
right? Which I asked how accurate that movie was, and you were like, it was pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing. I might actually watch that this weekend. It was a great movie. But just the amount of detail in that movie specifically to get those people out was pretty amazing. And you said it was, relatively semi-accurate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, attention to detail
Is
at that
everything.
level is everything. This isn't something that we wing. It's a job.
Right,
You
yeah.
learn how to do it, and
Yeah.
there's a way to do it,
Speaking of that, have you ever had to wing anything?
I mean, everything when you're working UC is a little bit of both. I would say it's like jazz instead of classical music. You've got the outline. You just can't go off
Ad-lib.
and straight.
Yeah.
Do like stranglehold. All this
Right.
the sudden.
Yeah.
You have the limits, the left and right stuff you're supposed to be doing.
Sure.
But there's a lot of riffing, in the middle of it.
Yeah. I think that's where I feel like what they trained a lot of you for was just that adaptability, right? Processing your personality, your psyche to be able to adapt to those situations.
Yeah, I think, you're spot on. So a lot of what the training is, it's conceptually based. There's no way to say, here's the direct if this, then that answer for every situation you're going to be in. You have to get the underlying concept of what you're supposed to do and then be able to apply it to a really wide variety of things by, making the right decision on your own. It would just take decades and decades to train somebody, for every little thing.
Yeah. And I'm assuming it's just like any job. You got better as you did it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Last question. This is kind of an interesting one because
Uh-oh.
no, it's not. I always try to ask one question at the end to determine what you like to your core are, right? And obviously, after listening to this, people may feel a certain way about you, good and or bad. That's their own opinion.
I've had it both ways.
Yeah, I'm sure, and you probably still do.
Yep.
In many different countries. What is one thing to someone listening right now? What is one thing you'd want them to carry with them? Like what is with everything you know and have seen? What is the one thing you'd want people to know?
That's a really interesting question.
About life, about you, about anything. Who, like, from Matt, the person.
Yeah, I would say one of the things that I've learned the most in interacting with humans, which is what I did for a living, is that the answer is always to treat people the right way. No matter what, if you're trying to infiltrate, this terrible crew, or you're trying to do something else, or you have a conflict at work, it never gets worse by you doing the right thing to them. And I think a lot of times when people have confrontation in their life or struggles with other people, they try to think, how can I be aggressive about this? How can I? And there's a time for aggression, for sure. But I think that loving people, genuinely caring, and just giving a shit is the answer to most of the problems with people out there.
Very biblical answer.
Yeah.
Coming from Matthew. What a great name. Matt, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Guys, I'm excited to have Matt on. Matt is a part of the Police Post app, working on some money laundering courses as well that will be available, as well as some in-person courses too coming up. So if your agency's interested, local, state, federal, hit us up. We can get Matt out there, get you guys some training. So Matt's going to be a regular on the show. So super stoked to have you. And until next time, bro.
I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you for spending your time with us today. I don't take that lightly. If something in this episode stuck with you, share it, subscribe, and leave a comment. It generally helps more people find the show. And if you're looking for that next step, EFC and EFT are linked below. Worth checking out. Until next time, stay ready.